The first light of dawn hadn't yet broken the sky when, 12-year-old, Nia slipped out of the rusting trailer she called home. The cold air bit through her oversized sweatshirt, and her fingers, red from the chill, gripped the handle of a repurposed wagon. Inside were handmade wire trinkets and carved wooden keychains, things she'd spent countless nights crafting by candlelight, hoping they'd bring in just enough to keep her stepfather from lashing out. The town was the kind people only passed through, its streets cracked, its buildings faded with neglect, and its residents used to turning their eyes away. Nia walked the gravel road in silence, her feet wrapped in torn socks and sandals missing straps. Her eyes flicked toward the storefronts as she approached the market strip, mostly shuttered this early, save for a few vendors setting up. She took her usual spot near the corner, a patch of pavement under a rusting lamppost. One by one, she laid out her trinkets on a makeshift cloth mat. The wooden carvings bore small, delicate details: birds, animals, initials burned in by hand. Each one carried hours of her time and a quiet hope. Passers-by mostly ignored her. A few offered pitying glances. Others simply walked past as if she were invisible. She kept her eyes down, whispering prices when someone lingered too long without buying. Despite her aching legs and the hunger twisting in her belly, Nia stayed silent, her face a careful mask. It was safer that way. The goal wasn't just to sell. She had to sell enough. Enough to keep Rick from yelling. Enough to keep the lights on for one more week. Hours crept by, and the sun crawled across the sky. The market swelled with voices, then began to quiet again as the morning rush faded. Nia's mat was barely lighter. Only 3 pieces had sold. One to a kind-faced older woman, another to a teenager who didn't bother haggling, and the last to a man who tossed her a coin without a word. She ran her thumb over a small wooden sparrow as the crowd thinned. Her knuckles were scraped from pulling the cart, and her knees stiffened from sitting on cold concrete. Her hands trembled slightly, not from fear, not yet, but from the creeping knowledge that today had not gone well. Not well enough for Rick. Packing the unsold items carefully back into the wagon, Nia looked at the crumpled bills and few coins in her pocket. She knew it wasn't enough. Not nearly. Her breath hitched, but she steadied herself. No tears. Not here. As the last vendors began to pack up, she started her walk home, tugging the cart behind her. The wind picked up, kicking dust along the roadside. Her thoughts turned dark with dread, every step drawing her closer to the door she never wanted to open. The road home cut along the edge of town, quiet and cracked, bordered by dry fields and power poles that leaned like they'd given up standing straight. Nia walked in silence, her arms sore from dragging the wagon, her mind already rehearsing what to say to Rick. Maybe she could lie, maybe blame a slow market, maybe just stay quiet and take whatever was coming. Then she saw it, just past a bend near the ditch. Something large was sprawled across the gravel shoulder. A man, older. His coat was torn, one shoe missing, gray hair matted with blood. Nia froze. For a moment, the world went soundless, just the wind, and the soft creak of her wagon settling behind her. She edged closer. His chest moved. Shallow. Barely. One arm twisted under him unnaturally. There was no one else in sight. No traffic. No houses close enough to yell for help. No phone in her pocket. No time to wait. Panic tried to rise in her chest, but Nia pushed it down. She gritted her teeth, bent her knees, and dragged the man's limp body, gently, awkwardly, onto the flat base of her wagon. He moaned faintly but didn't wake. Blood smeared the wood. Her heart thudded like a drum. The hospital was nearly a mile away. She started pulling. The old wheels groaned in protest. Her feet slipped on the gravel. The man's weight made the cart tip with every bump, and more than once she had to stop and readjust him. A car passed, then another. No one stopped. Her arms burned. Her legs buckled, but she didn't stop. Halfway there, her palms began to blister. Her knees wobbled with every step, but her eyes stayed fixed on the road ahead. She didn't know this man, didn't know if he'd survive. All she knew was that she couldn't let him die on the side of the road like that. When the hospital finally appeared, a low beige building tucked behind a parking lot, Nia stumbled toward the sliding glass doors and shouted through the entrance. "Help! Please, he's hurt." The sliding doors hissed open as Nia stumbled inside, panting and pale, her sweatshirt damp with sweat. Behind her, The old man lay motionless on the wagon. His blood smeared across the wood and onto her hands. A nurse at the reception desk looked up, startled. For a second, she just stared. Then she rushed out with a gurney and 2 orderlies trailing behind her. "What happened?" she asked, her voice sharp with urgency as they carefully lifted the man. I I found him on the road," Nia stammered. No one else stopped. He was barely breathing. The nurse nodded, but her tone shifted. "Do you know his name? Any insurance card? ID?" Nia shook her head. "I don't know him. He didn't have anything." The nurse's jaw tightened. She looked at the man again, then back at Nia. "We'll do what we can, but the system's strict. If he has no ID, no insurance, no emergency contact, he may not be admitted beyond stabilization." Nia's hand went into her pocket. She pulled out the wad of bills sheet. Made that morning. Crumpled. Humble. Barely enough for groceries. Let alone a hospital bill. She held it out. "This is all I have." The nurse's face softened for a moment, but she still hesitated. "I'm sorry," she said quietly. "It's not up to me. Without coverage or a deposit, the hospital." "Please," Nia cut in, her voice cracking. "He's going to die." There was a long silence. Behind them, down the hall, she could hear the faint beeping of machines. Somewhere, a code was called. A patient was crying. The world was too loud all at once, and yet too far away. Nia stared at the nurse, desperation in her eyes. Her fingers closed slowly around the last thing she hadn't offered yet. The nurse turned to leave, but Nia's voice stopped her. "Wait." With trembling hands, she reached beneath her sweatshirt and pulled out a small chain, dull from years of wear. The silver charm, shaped like a crescent moon. It wasn't much to look at, but it was all she had left of her mother. The only thing Rick hadn't pawned or smashed in one of his rages. She had kept it hidden, close to her chest, like armor. She unclasped it slowly. This has to be worth something," she whispered. The nurse hesitated, eyes flicking from the necklace to Nia's dirty fingers and exhausted face. A beat passed, then another. Finally, the nurse stepped forward and gently took the chain. "No promises," she said quietly, "but I'll talk to the doctor." Nia nodded once, then sat heavily on a cracked plastic chair in the waiting area. Her arms rested in her lap, empty now. The wagon was gone. The man gone. Her carvings, her coins, all of it left behind in the blur of panic. Her hands felt foreign, and her chest ached where the necklace had once rested. Outside, the sky had dimmed. Gray clouds bunched along the horizon, threatening rain. Nia leaned her head back against the wall. Her stomach growled. Her legs throbbed. But worse was the knot inside her. An ache that had nothing to do with hunger or exhaustion. She had nothing left. But at least the man had a chance. The nurse turned to leave, but Nia's voice stopped her. "Wait." With trembling hands, she reached beneath her sweatshirt and pulled out a small chain, dull from years of wear. The silver charm, shaped like a crescent moon. It wasn't much to look at, but it was all she had left of her mother. The only thing Rick hadn't pawned or smashed in one of his rages. She had kept it hidden, close to her chest, like armor. She unclasped it slowly. This has to be worth something," she whispered. The nurse hesitated, eyes flicking from the necklace to Nia's dirty fingers and exhausted face. A beat passed, then another. Finally, the nurse stepped forward and gently took the chain. "No promises," she said quietly, "but I'll talk to the doctor." Nia nodded once, then sat heavily on a cracked plastic chair in the waiting area. Her arms rested in her lap, empty now. The wagon was gone. The man gone. Her carvings, her coins, all of it left behind in the blur of panic. Her hands felt foreign, and her chest ached where the necklace had once rested. Outside, the sky had dimmed. Gray clouds bunched along the horizon, threatening rain. Nia leaned her head back against the wall. Her stomach growled. Her legs throbbed. But worse was the knot inside her. An ache that had nothing to do with hunger or exhaustion. She had nothing left. But at least the man had a chance. The trailer door crashed shut behind him, water dripping from his jacket, muddy footprints trailing across the floor. Rick's eyes swept the room and landed on the pitiful stack of crumpled bills on the counter. "That it?" he growled, voice slurred and low. Nia stood slowly. I tried. I sold what I could. But there weren't many buyers today." Rick stepped closer. "You were gone all day, and that's all you brought back?" Her lips parted, searching for the right words, but her voice was too soft. "There was a man," she said. "He was hurt. Really bad. I found him near the road. No one stopped. I brought him to the hospital. Rick's jaw tightened. That's not your problem. He would have died. Rick swiped the money off the counter, bills fluttering to the floor. You gave my money to a stranger? I had to, she said. They wouldn't help him unless I. His hand struck before the sentence finished. The sharp sound echoed, louder than the thunder outside. Nia stumbled backward, her cheek burning. You little fool, he spat. You think the world gives a damn about you? You think you're some kind of hero now? She didn't answer. Her eyes burned, but she refused to cry. Rick grabbed her arm. You think you can just throw away what I give you? You think I don't have enough on my plate without dealing with your charity games? I gave them something else, she whispered, voice trembling. He froze. What? She reached into her pocket and pulled out nothing, only air. I gave them the necklace. Mom's. The one you didn't know I still had. Rick's expression twisted. You gave away real silver? For some old bum on the street. He pushed her hard. She hit the wall, barely catching herself. That necklace was worth more than you'll ever be. His words landed like fists. He turned away, pacing, muttering to himself, then turned back. Get out. Now. Nia blinked. You heard me, he snarled. You want to be a martyr? Fine. Go save somebody else. But not on my dime. She stood still, silent. I said go. Without a sound, she grabbed her hoodie from the floor, slipping it over her damp clothes. She didn't take anything else. There wasn't anything else worth taking. Outside, the rain poured. She stepped into the night, cold water drenching her again, hair sticking to her face. She didn't look back. Rain plastered her clothes to her skin. Each step felt heavier, her sneakers soaked through, squishing in the puddles that lined the cracked sidewalks of the trailer park's edge. The wind howled low through the trees, pulling at the hem of her hoodie like fingers trying to hold her back. But she didn't stop. She didn't know where she was going. She just walked. By the time she reached the bus stop, the streetlights flickered to life, dim, buzzing things that barely lit the sidewalk. The glass shelter creaked in the wind, and someone had long ago scratched vulgar words into the bench. She sat down, curling her knees to her chest. No bag, no coat, no food, just herself, and the sting on her cheek where Rick's hand had left its mark. The rain drummed steadily above her, drowning the distant traffic and the occasional bark of a stray dog. Across the street, a convenience store blinked open in dull red letters. But she had nothing to buy with. The last of her warmth had left hours ago. She pulled her hood over her head, trying to disappear into the fabric. Her fingers found the empty space at her collarbone where the necklace used to be. She closed her eyes, remembering the last time her mother had fastened it around her neck. Gentle hands. A soft kiss on her forehead, the smell of chamomile and clean laundry. That was before everything broke. A tear slid down her cheek, but she wiped it away quickly. Crying wouldn't change anything. She had helped someone. That had to mean something. Even if no one else ever knew. Even if she was alone now. The night stretched out ahead of her, endless and cold. Still, she stayed on that bench, clutching her arms close, daring the dawn to come. The ceiling above him was white. Too white. The kind of sterile brightness that stung the eyes and made everything feel far away. Donovan blinked, struggling to focus. A soft beeping echoed from nearby, steady and mechanical. He turned his head, slowly. The motion sent pain flaring through his ribs. Tubes, wires, bandages, wrapped around his chest. His coat was gone. He tried to speak, but only a rasp escaped his throat. A nurse walked in, glancing at a clipboard. When she noticed his open eyes, she paused mid-step. You're awake, she said, surprised. We weren't sure you would be. He tried again. Where? You're at County General, she said, setting the clipboard down. You were hit by a car. No ID. No phone. You were wearing an old wool coat, soaked in blood. The memories returned in flashes. Rain on asphalt. A sudden blinding light. Pain like fire ripping through his side. But deeper than that, a different kind of ache. His daughter's voice. Laughter. Screams. A year ago, the crash had taken his entire world. His wife. His little girl. Zoe. And since then, he hadn't spoken much to anyone. Hadn't answered phone calls. Hadn't really lived. The nurse pulled the blanket up around his shoulders. You were out for nearly half a day, she said. Someone brought you in. A kid. His eyes narrowed. A kid. She found you on the road, bleeding. No one else stopped. She couldn't get help, so she dragged you here. On a handcart, of all things. Homemade. I've never seen anything like it. Donovan's voice came rough. Where is she? The nurse shook her head. She didn't leave a name. She didn't even stay. Just dropped you off and handed us this. She reached into a drawer and pulled out a small cloth bag. Inside it was a silver pendant. Cleaned but scratched, a simple charm. The kind worn close to the heart. She paid for your admission with it, the nurse said. Didn't say a word. Donovan stared at the necklace. His hands trembled. Find her, he said, with sudden clarity. I need to find her. I'll notify the director, the nurse said. Maybe security caught something on camera. Moments later, the door opened again. This time, it was Marcus, Donovan's assistant. Face pale and breathless. My God, Marcus said. You're alive. Donovan sat up straighter, grimacing from the pain. We don't have time for that. I need you to track down a girl. A girl? She's 12. Maybe younger. Black. Wore a braid. Pulled me to this hospital on a cart. Paid with a necklace. Find her. Marcus blinked, stunned. All right. I'll start with the hospital cameras. Maybe check the market. Good. Donovan said, gripping the silver pendant tightly. She saved my life. I won't let her disappear. Outside, the rain had slowed, but the sky remained gray. Inside the hospital room, something had shifted in Donovan's eyes. Not just determination, but the flicker of purpose. Something he hadn't felt in a long time. Donovan leaned heavily on the hospital window frame, eyes scanning the city below. Cars passed by without urgency. People moved on sidewalks with purpose. But none of them knew the girl, who had dragged his body through the rain to save him. She didn't want thanks, he murmured. She just wanted him to live. Behind him, Marcus tapped away on his tablet. I've got something. Hospital surveillance shows a girl arriving with you around 7 a.m. homemade cart. Bundled coat, no shoes. Some security guards remembered her. They said she comes by the public market every now and then. Donovan turned sharply. Name. First name's Nia. Lives, or used to live, with a man named Rick Hensley. Reports say he's volatile. No record of a guardian or school enrollment in her name, at least not recently. Donovan's jaw tightened. Is she still there? No. Her trailer's empty. Neighbors said she ran out last night during a storm. No one's seen her since. Donovan picked up his coat, flinching as he moved. Take me to where she was last seen. Morning light crept through the cloud cover, pale and tentative. Nia still sat slumped on the bench, chin resting on her knees. Her hoodie was stiff with dried rain, and her fingers had gone numb hours ago. She hadn't. He slept, only drifted in and out of heavy thoughts. People walked past without noticing her. A woman with a stroller, a man on his phone, a cyclist. None of them stopped. She didn't blame them. She wasn't used to being seen anyway. Her eyes flicked toward the road as a dark car rolled to a stop. The engine hummed, and the passenger door opened slowly. A man stepped out, stiff and clearly in pain. He leaned on a cane. She squinted. It was him, the man from the road, the one she'd found bleeding, gasping. He approached carefully, not wanting to startle her. She tensed but didn't move. Nia, he asked softly. Her name sounded strange coming from someone kind. She nodded once, unsure what else to do. He crouched, though it clearly hurt him. In his hand, a small cloth pouch. I think this belongs to you, he said, opening it and holding out the silver pendant. Clean, untangled, shining in the muted morning. She stared at it for a long moment, then at him. I didn't give it to you, she said quietly. I gave it to them so they'd help you. I know, he replied, but I wanted to give it back, not as a gift, as a promise. Nia didn't respond, but she didn't look away either. You didn't ask for anything, he said. And still, you gave the only thing you had. Most people don't do that anymore. Not without cameras, not without rewards. Silence settled between them. He didn't rush her. I'm not trying to replace your family, he said. But if you don't want to go back to that house, you don't have to be alone. He extended the necklace again. Slowly, cautiously, she reached out and took it. For the first time in hours, her shoulders eased, just slightly. Donovan didn't press further. They simply sat there for a while, under the faded shelter, as the world moved past them and the morning finally began to break. A modest brick building stood near the edge of town, newly painted and gleaming in the morning light. Above its arched entrance, a carved wooden sign read, "The Zoe Center for Youth and Courage." Inside, sunlight poured through wide windows into rooms full of life. Children of all ages played, learned, and painted across long tables. Some sat curled up with books in beanbag chairs. Others planted flowers in raised beds just outside. There was a softness in the air, warm voices, gentle encouragement, the faint hum of possibility. At the far end of the hallway, in a quiet room with shelves of art supplies and sketch pads, Nia sat alone at a table. Her hair was pulled back now. Her clothes were clean. Around her neck, the silver pendant rested like an anchor, tarnished. Familiar, beloved. She didn't speak much, but she listened. When younger children cried, she handed them tissues. When they were scared, she stayed close without a word. The others didn't know what she'd been through, but they felt safe near her. Donovan watched from the doorway, leaning slightly on his cane. He said nothing. He didn't need to. Later that afternoon, Nia joined him beneath the old maple tree behind the center. They sat side by side, legs stretched out, faces toward the sky. The air smelled of fresh soil and wood shavings. "Why'd you name it after her?" Nia asked quietly. Donovan glanced at her. "Zoe." She nodded. He thought for a moment. "Because she was brave and kind. And because when I thought that spirit had died with her, you reminded me it hadn't." Nia looked down at the necklace, fingers brushing the charm. "I didn't do it to be remembered." "I know," he said. "That's what makes it unforgettable." They sat in silence again. No rush. No wait between them. Just time and healing and a tree that had watched them both grow in different ways. Behind them, the Zoe Center continued to hum with quiet energy, its classrooms alive, its walls growing with the handprints of children who were learning, little by little, to feel safe again. Over the following months, the Zoe Center became more than just a building. It became a sanctuary. Children came through its doors carrying invisible burdens, fear, silence, uncertainty. One by one, they found their footing. And at the heart of it all was a girl who had once believed she had nothing left to give. Nia never spoke about where she came from. Not in detail. She didn't need to. Her actions were louder than her past, steady, kind, enduring. She helped timid kids find their voices, coaxed laughter out of tears, and sat patiently with those who needed someone to simply stay. There was no spotlight, no recognition, just presence. Donovan, once withdrawn and hollowed by grief, found himself rebuilding, not from brick or blueprint, but from grace. The selfless act of a girl he'd never met had reopened a door he thought was sealed forever. Her courage had cracked something open in him, and that crack let in the light. They weren't a traditional family. There were no declarations, no papers filed. But Nia didn't sleep at bus stops anymore. She didn't flinch at footsteps behind her or shrink at raised voices. She had a key, a place to return to, and someone who waited up when it rained. And though she never asked for it, Nia had made something lasting. A home for others, a quiet revolution, a life that didn't erase the pain, but transformed it. In the final scene, we see her walking along the hallway of the Zoe Center, the necklace catching the afternoon sun. She pauses to hold the door open for a little boy carrying a stack of books. He smiles up at her, and she smiles back, soft, real, unwavering. Voiceover. True kindness doesn't wait for reward. It leaves a mark where the world once looked away. And sometimes, the smallest act becomes someone's beginning. Fade out. End credits. We're building a community where kindness isn't just a word. It's the most cherished and honored part of who we are. If this story moved you, join us. Like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss a moment that reminds us. Compassion can change everything.